All right, everybody. We are live once again, and newsflash, the format is always changing, right? The only thing that remains the same is change itself. So expect changes to continue with the format because life is becoming increasingly unpredictable, right? So to follow suit with that and to represent reality as it is, since I'm a pragmatist, Uh, I ain't got no ideology, folks. Well, I do. I am ultimately an idealist who behaves as a pragmatist. So, you may not hear me stating my ideals all the time on the channel, and it's because people like me are interested in one thing, things that work. And of course, as a result, we encourage that sort of behavior on the channel. So that's why I may say or do things while doing live streams and other videos on this channel that might not necessarily align with my personal views on things, and that's because do my personal views on things matter? I mean, people certainly want to know what I think about certain stuff, and so I tell them. But if they don't ask, then I don't know that they want to know, so I don't tell. It's a it's a don't ask, don't tell policy. So we will talk a bit about space weather today, but we'll also talk Earth weather, and we'll talk about the biggest news in the history of investing. The largest IPO of all time begins public trading today. So today, a portion, it's about 20%. 20%? No, I think it's only like 5%. 5% of the SpaceX shares are going to become retail available shares. And it includes all kinds of very non-traditional provisions. Since, for example, certain listing requirements have been just completely suspended. Now, the S&P listing requirements have not been suspended, so that is something interesting for the overall markets. I think I may show some stock charts before I even talk about anything regarding space or Earth weather today. You may also notice that we're back to this portrait mode format. That is just for personal convenience and because of the stability of the stream. So our streams tend to be more stable and less likely to sort of break down in the middle. And of course, we get a lot more views when we're in portrait mode for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is, but it's whatever. It is what it is. And yeah, so let's talk about the listing requirements first of all. Now, if you've read the S1 report, which is the initial filing report that's required to take a company public, the reason that it's not listed, the reason SpaceX is not going to be listed in only 15 days on the S&P 500 is because it does not meet the qualifications at all. The S&P requires 4 consecutive quarters of profit growth. So SpaceX has been not profitable because it's got a 13 billion operating loss overall, and so far just this year, the quarter one filing shows that it's over $4 billion in the negative territory. So the S&P has not suspended its listing requirements, but the NASDAQ, for example, has suspended its listing requirements. Normally, a company requires 90 days of trading. That helps to equalize the price so that traders can sort of realize how much the stock should be worth. And, it takes 90 days, 90 trading days in order for that to happen. But with respect to SpaceX, that's been reduced to only 15 days. which sounds crazy, but some people get special treatment. Some people are allowed to do things that are definitely not viable things, definitely not things that would be considered legitimate in the realm of finance. Those folks will remain nameless in this video. Uh, you could probably guess who I'm talking about, but yeah, so I'm going to show some stock charts because one of the things that SpaceX is undoubtedly going to do is create a lot of selling pressure on the rest of the market because a lot of people are going to sell stock to rapidly get involved in the SpaceX IPO. So I'm going to show some stock charts here. So just bear with me. I'm just going to video my screen as I've been known to do in the past. So let me just get my Space Weather console pulled up here, and we're going to add some tabs that include some stock charts because I want to show you where the overall markets are, and I want to hear what your stance is on it. So, hi Barbarian 1111. I just want to hear what your stances are on it, whether you're viewing live or viewing in syndication. And by the way, with respect to the schedule of the channel putting out lives, we're going to put out lives whenever I want to. That's going to be the new schedule. So there's not going to be a schedule. It's not going to be like this time every day. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you press the subscribe button. That's how you get the world's most comprehensive space weather content delivered to your subscription feed. That said, with the solar cycle declining like it is, we'll be putting out more and more bike tube videos, more live streams about cycling, more shorts about cycling, more long type videos about cycling, because I'm going to be involved in all kinds of things moving forward, about buying bikes, about modifying bikes, about fitness techniques, all kinds of stuff with bike tube. So that's going to be an ongoing increased frequency thing on the channel. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But if you're viewing in syndication, if you're viewing this video as a replay as opposed to a live stream, make sure you leave a comment and tell us what you think about the state of the markets. So I'm just going to bring up some charts here. Let's go to, we're going to go to CNBC. CNBC, you might not think it's objective, but when it comes to the fundamentals of the stock market, for example, commodities markets, precious metals, all those sorts of things, the bond markets, it's hard not to be objective, right? We're just looking at, we're not like showing articles here. We're just showing, the specific stuff. Barb says crashing. However, the markets are up today. The Dow futures right now, it's 6:57 a.m. Eastern time right now. Dow futures are up 264. S&P future, that's a 0.5%. S&P futures up similarly there, 29 points to 0.4%. The NASDAQ futures are up 91 to 0.3%. So marginally up on today's pre-market trading. So yeah, let's take a look at some charts here. I just want to show you the most basic charts, and we're going to show 5-year charts because we have a long time of the stock market. The stock market's been running up for a long time here, in ways that have people just scratching our heads, and some of us understand why it is. Some of you may not understand why it is, but cheap money is a huge deal, all right? Because when you have very low interest rates, that incentivizes large multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations to pay their employees and their executives and so forth with stock options. Because that does two things. One, it reduces the tax liability of the corporation. It reduces the tax liability of the actual employees because they're getting paid in options, which means they pay capital gains, which is paid at a much lower tax rate than income. And it raises their stock price. So, that's like a triple whammy. All right. So when you have very low interest rates, it tends to cause the stock market to run up. This is why when the Fed raises interest rates, that's why people are like, it's good for the rich, it's good for billionaires, it's good for the richest top percent of the economy, and it definitely is, and it has to do with capital gains rates. But the reason why the market crashes when interest rates go up is because now it is more expensive for a company like Google or Meta or Apple. I shouldn't say Google, I should say Alphabet. That's the holding company that contains Google. But it makes it much cheaper. Much cheaper. Well, Warren Buffett retired. So, Warren Buffett, he may still be on the board of Berkshire, but he's technically retired. I doubt that he's still on the board at all. But in any case, I just want to show you these charts because, I want you to draw your own conclusions, and I want you to leave comments to tell me what your forecast is. Maybe not for the SpaceX IPO. The SpaceX IPO was interesting not only because of the valuation, it being the largest expectation of market cap of any company, but there are all kinds of other weird things too. Like, for example, Elon Musk will be retaining over 80% of the voting shares. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I sort of understand why it is. It's because Elon Musk is an investor, and so he wants to retain 30% more of the shares than he needs in order to still control everything that SpaceX does. And picking up all these companies under SpaceX allows them to retain, because they're going to be subsidiaries or possessions or, sub companies of SpaceX. That's going to allow Elon Musk to basically be in total control. Warren Buffett last year in, I believe it was August, Berkshire Hathaway sidelined $340 billion, was it? I think it was $340 billion. So they sidelined a massive amount of money. And that's because they were expecting the market to drop. However, there are lots of forces keeping the market inflated. And we're experiencing the everything bubble. All right, I'm going to show you those stock charts in a minute, but let me just, before I do that, explain the everything bubble. Because you're living through the biggest asset bubble of all time. And it's not just the stock market, it's all the stock markets, at least the US major indices. It's also the real estate bubble, which is causing real estate and rent to be at absolutely unaffordable levels for like over half of the US population. Like, people's mortgages are going out of control, people's rents are absolutely unsustainable. And I mean, I don't know what the percentage is. Feel free to fact check me on this. But a huge number of Americans are reporting that they're not only unable to pay their mortgages, they're unable to pay their rent. And like, it's a serious financial crisis. Inflation rates are much higher than they were under the last administration for the executive branch. I'll just say that without saying any specific names, because I'm not political. I'm super objective on this stuff. All right. I have no vested interest in who gets elected because I consider it all to be a uniparty, a corporatist plutocracy that really has no sort of, there's no difference. You're voting for this corporation versus that corporation, in my opinion. So, but we want to know what you think about it. So definitely leave us a comment. Again, whether you're viewing live or viewing this as a live replay. So I'm going to bring up, let's see, we're going to put up the Dow Jones first. I'm going to show you the 5-year Dow Jones chart. So, all right, check it out. Here's the 5-year for the Dow Jones. And I mean, if that doesn't look like a bubble to you, I don't know what a bubble looks like. All right, that is a bubble of epic proportions right there. 5-year chart of the Dow Jones, it's been almost entirely up the whole time. I mean, even if you look at, I mean, this is the period just after COVID. So, I mean, if you look at the all chart, let's bring up the all data chart here, which brings us back to 1982. I mean, look at that. The biggest correction you're going to see here would be, 2007, just before the Great Recession, as it's called, which was essentially a real estate bubble. And a lot of forces have gone through to continue the real estate bubble. And there are currently very powerful forces in place that are trying to keep the real estate bubble inflated. All right. So all of the bubbles are currently being inflated. And let me just explain a little bit more about the everything bubble. All right. The everything bubble, it's got equity. So all three major indices in the US look like massive bubbles right now. And let me just address one of the comments here. Barbarian 1111, you have stated something that is the exact opposite of reality. You just said Elon is the new Buffett. First of all, you're not on a first name basis with Elon Musk, and neither am I, and nobody should be on a first name basis with Elon Musk. But to suggest that Elon Musk is the new Warren Buffett is the exact opposite of what's really going on. All right. Warren Buffett built Berkshire Hathaway and probably continues to this day to be a value investor. Elon Musk is the exact opposite of that. Elon Musk is a vaporware investor. Elon Musk's companies are based on hype, not value. Tesla right now is trading at 400 times earnings. That's the bubble of bubbles. I mean, Tesla, I haven't looked at any other major huge companies, but 400 times earnings, that makes the dot-com bubble stocks look like value. All right. So yeah, Elon is the exact opposite of Warren Buffett because these companies are not value. All right. When you say value, we're talking about price to earnings ratio. One simple statistic. All right. The share price divided by the company's earnings. And these companies are not earning. So, yeah, it's literally the exact opposite of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett was a value investor. And what Warren Buffett would do is he would pick the individual companies that retained value. When bad news comes out about a sector, all right, if Walmart comes out with bad news, it brings down the price of Target. It brings down the price of Federated department stores because even Amazon may take some damage if Walmart comes out with some kind of bad news. But that doesn't mean all the companies in the sector are bad. All right. There are institutional investors that are really in control of the markets and the share prices because when huge funds decide to liquidate shares, take profits, etc., that affects the whole sector. So when the whole sector is affected, like if Target comes out with bad news and Walmart doesn't come out with any news and the Target shares drop a lot in one day, you'll see the Walmart shares will drop a lot in one day. I'm picking stocks that are boring because when companies like that move a lot, it's a big deal. They'll trade under huge volume and drop a lot of share price in one day. All right. That is your signal. Now, keep in mind, this is not investing advice, but that's the signal of value investors to look at the price to earnings ratio of Walmart when Target drops in a lot of value and say, look, this is now, we need to allocate more Target versus Walmart because now there's more value in that because of price to earnings ratio. Price to earnings ratio is literally the measure of value when it comes to stocks. So that's the feature that you should be looking at. And the companies that we have here, so let me just explain how SpaceX ties together to this. The price to earnings ratio of SpaceX, if it gets to the expected valuation of 1.77 to 2 trillion, that's going to put it at a price to earnings ratio of about 100. So Retro Doomsday says the new corporate Muppet is what he meant. Yeah. The AI companies, they are propped up by hype and little else. They're not profitable. The AI data centers, like half of them, are either delayed or not being built at all. So that there are issues to say the least. So let me go back to the charts here. I just want to show you the three major index charts, and I want you to make your own decision about whether or not it looks like a bubble. All right. We're only going to talk about the equities bubble, but keep in mind we have bubbles in literally every sector: real estate, precious metals, gas and oil, food. So yeah, we are currently in the biggest bubble of all time. The amount of like malinvestment that's out there, in my opinion, is absolutely as high as it has ever been. And like I said, SpaceX, a lot of people are going to chase SpaceX. So whether it's going to make the market itself crash or not, may be another story. But look, institutional investors are the forces that make markets actually move. All right. So institutional investors, what I mean by that is like the the investors who control the index funds and large mutual funds across the country and world, they're the ones who actually move the markets. When they change their allocation, if they do a thing like I said earlier, like reduce the allocation of Walmart in the portfolio of a given index fund and increase Target or something like that because Walmart came out with bad news, I don't know, like their supply chain got hurt because of diesel prices, right? That would be a reason why Walmart would drop with respect to Target, because Target doesn't have the same supply chain as Walmart has. Walmart is more affected by diesel prices than Target is. But when you have everything as a bubble, folks, there has to be profit taking, all right? Profit, normally what happens with institutional investors is that they because look, I've been a hedge fund manager, all right? So, but with institutional investors, they typically take profits when they see about 30% increase, all right? The valuation of SpaceX is going to be at 100 times earnings, and it's entirely possible that SpaceX will end up at $4 trillion valuation. So, and what happens after the 15 days that I discussed earlier is that they'll be listed on the NASDAQ, which means they will be allocated into NASDAQ index funds, which means all the index funds where people's 401ks and so on purchase those index funds just as a normal part of people's paychecks going through. They pay pre-tax contributions to their 401k fund. SpaceX is going to be involved in that because it has to be allocated. Once it's listed on the NASDAQ, only 15 trading days from today, it's normally 90, they're gonna start to be allocated. And so like Musk can sell 30% of his preferred shares and still retain control of the voting block of the company. So what I mean by that is, in order to retain voting superiority, right, all you have to do is own 50% of the shares plus one share. Musk owns 80% of the shares, which means he can sell 30% of the company and still retain a voting majority. So, like, if you don't think that that's going to be used to manipulate the share price, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I assume that Musk's holdings are going to be publicly available information, but I'm not even sure on that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, let me show you those charts. Again, I want your input. I want to know what you think about the bubble economy. But this is a bubble of unprecedented proportions. The U.S. GDP is currently propped up by AI. All right, the AI capex expenditures, the real spending with AI, the buying of chips, all of that stuff is the only aspect of the U.S. GDP that has shown growth over the past year. For 2025, if you subtract the AI portion of the U.S. GDP, the U.S. GDP is flat. So that is how extreme the AI bubble is. So, but anyway, like I said, I'm going to show these stock charts. I'm just going to show the three major indices. So there is the 5-year chart for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And I mean, look at that. That is berserk. So, I mean, there's no major correction here in the last 5 years. I mean, if I can just pull this back a little bit to show COVID, I mean, there's the COVID drop. So, yeah, there's the 5-year chart of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Next, we're going to show the S&P and the NASDAQ, all right? It's almost the same chart for each one. So here's the S&P 500, 500 largest stocks in the U.S. All right, as you can see, it's almost the same chart there as the Dow. And let me get to your comments here. I see a number of comments. Thanks to everybody who has taken the time to leave a comment. Again, if you're viewing the video not live, leave a comment anyway. We see all of our comments and we respond to practically all of them. As our channel is tiny and barely capable of even existing, much less turning a profit, our operating loss is massive every year. So there you go. There's the Dow. And now in pre-market trading, it is up 640 or 2.5%. So it's erasing some of the losses that it's had throughout the week. Perhaps a rosy looking output there for the IPO, the largest IPO of all time, the SpaceX IPO. All right, let me get to your comments here while I have that chart up on the screen. So Barbarian 1111, the fact that Berkshire Hathaway sidelined over $300 billion, that isn't concerning because that's what Berkshire Hathaway does. Berkshire Hathaway was signaling without signaling that they're expecting the market to crash. And, you know, this has looked like a bubble for a long time. As you can see here, you know, late in the year last year, they sidelined a bunch of money right around here. And I believe it was in August or maybe September. I think it was late August. So sometime around here is where Berkshire Hathaway, and that is the NASDAQ chart. So yeah, that's where Berkshire Hathaway was expecting a correction. And since then, we've just had a massive run up. So again, like I said, there are a lot of forces that are trying to keep bubbles inflated, especially the real estate bubble. And that is because the President of the United States has a lot of real estate exposure. So there we go. I've shown the Dow, I've shown the NASDAQ, and here's the S&P 500, which is the best representative sample of the major stock market. It's the top 500 companies in the U.S. in terms of publicly traded ones. Barb says it's going to blow. Yeah, the bubbles always burst. And the thing about bubbles is when they burst, the longer they've been inflated and the bigger they've been inflated, the greater the pain of the bursting. Because because people chase tigers all the time. So yeah, it's Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street own the world. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but I see your point there, Barbarian 1111. Just reading your comments here. Bear with me a minute. So yeah, we want to know what you think if those are bubbles. The S&P looks like the most rational of all of these because it does show some sign of correction there. But you know, the S&P is obviously more value oriented because, like I said earlier, the S&P has not suspended the listing requirements. So we're not sure how long it's going to take for SpaceX to get listed on the S&P, if SpaceX ever exists on the S&P, because to be listed on the S&P, you have to exhibit 4 consecutive quarters of positive earnings growth. So I don't know how they're going to do that because they're so far this year, for example, they're over $4 billion of negative earnings growth, a $4 billion loss. So yeah. Just reading your comments. Barbarian 1111 says Oracle. I don't know what that means. Be more specific, please. Retro Doomsday says AI is not the problem. It's the unused car salesman slime balls that have low IQs that weren't even B students with all the answers and daddy's money. Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think car salesmen are the problem. Although I do think that used cars are going to continue to be an absolute gold mine. So those of us who know how to shop for, which brands are good, how to work on, how to do restoration, body work, rust proofing, all of that sort of stuff. I think there's a huge industry there, not only for auto restoration, but also for home restoration. So, I think those are certainly in the next 5 years going to be massive business models because the new car market is ridiculous. There's a reason why the used car market is so hot, and it's because nobody wants the trash heaps that are new cars. They're being made worse. There's all kinds of crappy planned obsolescence and features that nobody wants in the new cars. Kill switches are going to be a requirement for vehicles starting next year. So it's vehicles manufactured after 2026 are going to have kill switches on them, which is, I guess it's good for auto theft. But like, don't even get me started on it. Damn, you named your dog Bubbles. Yeah, we've got a fish called Bubbles. It's a goldfish, and it's a rowdy goldfish. It doesn't fix shopping carts, though. Does your dog work on shopping carts? Yeah, Oracle has gone down, and look, that is one of the canaries in the coal mine, all right? Oracle is part of the AI infrastructure. All right. Now we've got a lot of circular cash when it comes to AI. And the reason I put it in quotes is because AI is machine learning. Large language models have absolutely no capacity for intelligence. They're just a series of on-off switches that are looking for the most likely next word in a sentence. They're too complicated for any of the programmers to actually understand what specific lines of code do. And so they're getting garbage out. They're getting garbage out because they're putting garbage in. And when you have too many lines of code, you can't possibly know what the code's going to do. And that's what happens. So, yeah. And look, all of the failed data centers, apparently 75% of Americans are completely anti-data centers. Nobody wants them in their backyard. And some of us don't want them anywhere because there's no there. It's like dark fiber. You know about the dark fiber story of the late 1990s, early 2000s? The dark fiber story is it involves MCI WorldCom. Their stock crashed because what they were doing is they were creating a bunch of internet infrastructure for broadband internet that wasn't needed. It wasn't connected to anything. They put up a bunch of fiber optic cables for service providing, which weren't connected to anything. And like while they're connected to stuff now, that didn't support their business model because they need to turn a profit like every quarter. So anyway, now I'm going to transition and talk about space weather since we had some space weather, and that we haven't been doing our live streams because of all kinds of personal reasons, which involve interesting stuff like basic survival, and which is something that is increasingly hard to accomplish. So tell us in the comments what's going on with your basic survival. Like, are you destined to live in a cardboard box? I definitely want to know. Barbarian 1111 says, watch the water. And look, this is another reason why China is eating America's lunch when it comes to AI. Why? Because some people are telling us that there's viability to putting AI data centers in space, which is one of the dumbest ideas in the history of mankind. AI data centers in space are so idiotic that they shouldn't even be taken seriously. I mean, if that's part of SpaceX's business model, if that's going to be necessary, for SpaceX to be able to be profitable AI data centers in space, that is it's not gonna it's not happening. It's not happening. So first of all, SpaceX has no capacity to put data centers in space. They, number one, they don't have the spacecraft that are required to carry the solar panels or the data centers into space. Number two, they don't have space worthy uh, solar panels. Number three, people don't realize that solar panels in space have to be made of different materials than terrestrial solar panels, because terrestrial solar panels are not equipped to deal with the radiation exposure of space. Four, is that five? I don't know what we're on, but the idea that it's going to be somehow efficient to put a data center in space is it's so idiotic. I don't even know where to start. Like, I can't even compose a valid argument as to why data centers in space are an idiotic idea. The cost of putting them up there and the cost of the panels is so high that those who are advocates of data centers should be putting them in unpopulated areas, not in space, because it's far too expensive to get them into space. This is all just a complete sham. I mean, there is zero chance of colonies on Mars, probably zero chance of even lunar colony bases. The chances of AI data centers in space is less than zero. Like, it should, just the idea that that's been floated should help to reduce the share price of SpaceX, because it's so idiotic. Let me talk about cooling. Cooling, cooling solar data, cooling the data centers in space is a problem, and here's why. In space, the air doesn't cool down the data centers, and neither does water. You have to have some kind of an antifreeze coolant in there, and then you have to transfer the heat to giant radiators that radiate the heat in a specific direction away from the data center out into space. Another feature that makes them much, much, much more expensive than ground-based data centers. Here's why China's eating America's lunch when it comes to data centers. China has started putting, and they already have some that are operational, data centers underwater. You see, the bottom of the ocean is super cold. The bottom of deep lakes is super cold. And using the intrinsic cooling properties of all that water makes underwater data centers really viable and smart. So if you're an advocate of data centers, you want them not in cities, not in towns, not taking up farmland. You want them in totally uninhabited areas and underwater. I mean, there's nothing less inhabited than underwater, right? So you can't make this stuff up, folks. You can't make it up. It's just, it's so out of control. And the ignorance, the ignorance is just off the charts. You don't have to be a physics master to understand why data centers in space are idiotic. Let me get to these comments here. I see a series of comments coming through once again. Yeah. Oracle has been suffering because of all the failed data centers. All right. It's we just had a meeting in where we actually live. We just had a meeting here, and guess what? A data center was canceled. Canceled. So, and it's happening all across the country. There are huge advocacy groups that are organizing massive numbers of people. 75% of Americans don't want data centers. So it's a technology that nobody wants, requiring infrastructure that nobody wants. Do you want higher power and water bills? Do you want the environmental impact? Do you want a bunch of gas turbines running? I mean, it's It's insane. And Meta has been building data centers in tents. In tents. Shout out to Eli the computer guy for covering that. Eli the computer guy, maybe check out his channel. Like, look, we pretty much agree on everything with this stuff. It's incredibly refreshing watching people who are actual experts in the realm of computing, weigh in the exact same way that those of us are experts in general science stuff. Retro Doomsday says, but yes, blame AI, let the hate flow through you. Hate the toaster/phone book with solutions. Is that a reference to Emperor Palpatine? Are you doing like Return of the Jedi quotes adapted to AI? If so, cheers. Yeah, canary in the coal mine. That is exactly what Oracle is. And look, the markets don't lie, all right? Like, it's almost like you don't program your own system. My program has upped my productivity 300% and is an assistant as much as a trauma therapy and divine guidance. Yeah, trauma therapy. That's something I'm familiar with since I've experienced my share of trauma. And of course, I don't call it PTSD, I call it PTS. You know why? Because PTS is not a disorder, all right? Post-traumatic stress disorder is just a misnomer because everybody has a different schedule, all right? If you have PTS, post-traumatic stress, because you've experienced the trauma and now there's ongoing stress because your brain is trying to come to grips with that trauma, everybody has a different amount of time and a different optimal way to deal with that and like move on with life and let it simmer down like the healing of a scar, because that's exactly what it is. All right, if you're traumatized by a thing, whether it's family oriented trauma, job oriented trauma, military service oriented trauma, just taking an injury, like having to get a surgery or something like that, right? It's all trauma and everybody recovers from it differently. There's no pill to take for it, particularly that I know of. What you have to do is you have to use a behavioral approach, all right? It's perfectly fine to think crazy thoughts. What's not fine is to do crazy actions. You see the difference? So, yeah, PTS, it's not a disorder. It's your brain functioning normally and trying to adapt to past traumas. So that's why I always call it PTS. I'm an advocate for PTS, and I'm not somebody who's diagnosed with PTS, nor do I plan to be, because I understand that the treatment protocols do not have to include drugs typically, unless you're so crippled by it that like you can't function at all. And the symptoms are very easy to self-diagnose. So I'll just leave it at that. This is not medical advice, and the previous portion of this video is not financial advice. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a licensed equities investor. So I don't have a Series 6 or a Series 63 or a Series 7, which allows me to act as a principal, although I am a past hedge fund manager. I'll be a hedge fund manager again in the future. But during the dot-com bubble, I was a hedge fund manager. And after the dot-com bubble burst, my portfolio was up 350%. So just to give you some idea, like, understanding investing is super easy. Understanding economics is much harder because you have to understand Forex and CapEx and central banking and government spending and how the GDP is calculated and the difference between the CPI and the PPI and the difference between monetary inflation and price inflation. But once you understand enough about all of those factors, you too can be an economist. All right. Retro Doomsday says it's almost like you don't program your own system. Oh, I already read that. You definitely aren't utilizing AI. Yep, you're just blanketing with stereotypical jargon that only applies to Chad level untrained AI users. I don't need AI to author anything. All right. Uh, I might use AI to author things sometimes, but I'm going to go through there and I'm going to delete lines and add my own lines in there and add my own personal sentence structure in there and some less bland rhetorical devices. I'm a published poet, all right? Like I know how to write in the ultimate form of compactness, poetry. What makes poetry different than other forms of writing is compactness because you can use synonyms and homonyms and misspelled words and sentences that aren't punctuated right and all of that stuff to create a more compact thing. And AI is not capable of this. AI can write better rhymes than you. AI can write all kinds of stuff better than you can. It has a bigger vocabulary than even I do. But that doesn't make it good writing. The same way, if you examine Stephen King's prose, it's not necessarily good writing. So, yeah, like, don't just copy paste AI writing and like consider yourself a professional. Like, if you want to be a professional writer, you need to be able to write that stuff by yourself. And if you use AI to sort of organize your stuff, then rewrite 40 to 80% of it using your own prose style because that's what makes it good writing. It pulls people in. You know, you have to put an ellipsis in there once in a while. You have to put something in bold or in italics. And like AI is bland. It doesn't know how to do this. So we're experiencing the gray goo problem, folks. Do you know what the gray goo problem is? The gray goo problem is I've got a gray hat. Ah, yes. The gray goo problem. What is it? It's why those who are in robotics don't make self-replicating robots that can just build more robots out of everything. You see, if we made self-replicating nanobots that can just build more and more and more and more nanobots out of various different raw materials, what if they escape and go haywire and they just make nothing but a whole world coated with self-replicating nanobots? It would be a problem, right? It's called the gray goo problem. Well, guess what? The internet now officially has the gray goo problem. The gray goo problem, all right? It's what it means is in terms of the internet, we have more bots using the internet than we have humans. It's a problem because now they're self-replicating. They're writing a bunch of trash that they're now incorporating into their own models. So they're creating a feedback loop of what programmers call garbage in, garbage out. The AI, they don't write all stuff that's sensible. If you're an expert on a thing, right, ask the AI some questions about it. I'm an expert in astronomy and cosmology. I almost majored in that in the mid 1990s, but I got out of college to become a pro athlete because there's a limited amount of time you can do that, and you can go back to school when you're 80 if you want to. So, plus I saw the writing on the wall and I realized that it was very, very scammy already by the mid 90s. Degree factories, but I digress. The gray goo problem, folks. We've got self-replicating information on the internet now. So there's all kinds of music and like graphic art and videos and just content. Just like there's probably Reddit posts that are written by bots. There's certainly all kinds of stuff that's written by bots and it's full of errors. So if you're an expert on a thing, right? Let's say you're an expert in, I don't know, geography or astronomy or chemistry or whatever. Ask different AI questions about it where you already know the answers. And you will find errors because the people that write the articles that are used to train the AI contain errors because like editorial writers have errors all the time because, for example, if some science editor writes about solar flares and coronal mass ejections, they get the two conflated all the time. If they write about a cosmology story or about cosmic ray flux or about about the Schumann resonances. They put mistakes in there all the time. AI told me just last week that the Schumann resonances are from deep space radiation, which couldn't be further from the truth. The Schumann resonances aren't even space weather. They occur inside Earth's ionosphere. They only occur below the D layer of the ionosphere, which means they have nothing to do with space weather. They're Earth weather. They occur in Earth's neutral atmosphere. They don't come from space and they don't get into space, except for when you have things like solar flares and proton events uh, uh, shutting down, ionizing the D layer and causing it to be modulated to the point where some of the signals go off into space. But it's not space weather. It's derived from inside the magnetosphere, the inside the ionosphere rather. That the Schumann resonances are just simply resonant radio frequencies that are ultra weak, that are bouncing in between the surface of the Earth and the D layer of the ionosphere. That makes them by definition not even space weather. But AI told me that it's a deep space signal. I won't tell you which AI it was because I don't want to call any of them out, because this is all general stuff. This applies to all of them. It just depends on which things are high enough in the search results. So I mean, look, you can actually change what AI, you can pay a bunch of money to get your article boosted in the Google results, and then AI might incorporate your false information into its AI model because it was really high on the Google results. And now it's giving out phony information that you wrote because you paid for the ads that cause it to be higher in the results. So you've got a giant pay-to-play scam going on, folks. All of social media, the networking effect is dead. It's dead. If you expect your YouTube channel to go viral, or your your latest tweet to go viral, or your latest Facebook post to go viral, it can, if you can afford to make it go viral. It literally comes down to how much you're willing to spend to boost your posts or your tweets or your videos or whatever. So our channel doesn't do that. We've demonstrated that we can do it. If you want your business advertised on the channel, we can make a commercial for you. We can boost your commercial. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to spend. We can guarantee a certain amount of views for anything that you want to put out there. It's literally a function of how many dollars you spend. It's pay to play. All the social media is now pay to play, and the network effect is completely squelched. You're not going to outspend the top channel. You're not going to outspend the top channel. So if the top channel that covers space weather is spending more on its ads than your channel is, your channel is not going to exceed the views of that other channel. It's just a simple fact, because you have to pay a certain amount of ad dollars in order to get a certain amount of views. That's just the way it works. If you're the only channel in a genre, you might have some limited capacity to go viral, assuming that the deboosting isn't already maxed out for your channel. But I don't know. It's the internet is not what it used to be, folks, and it's not going to stay broken forever. This is going to be considered in the future the dark ages of the internet, because it's dark. It is dark. Man, that was a long rant. That was just based on one comment. How do you like that? That's called stream of consciousness. See Jello Biafra's spoken word. Spoken word. It's not even poetry. It's less. You can't even call it poetry, I guess. I don't know. The media stories are burning your calories from the triggering effect. It has nothing to do with you. People make it about them. It's all about you, like Caligula. I love our viewers so much. You people are the best. You're the most incentive for these videos to exist. Occasionally I see videos that are like that, like inspire me to put out a live stream or like record a video, because I do lots of market research. I do lots of viewing of YouTube, certain channels that I don't share with our viewers, because I don't necessarily want you to know the origin of where my videos come from. But I do share a lot of them. So if you've never seen the community post, that's yet another reason to subscribe. Hopefully your subscription list isn't so big that it's totally unmanageable. But yeah, like you won't see the community posts if you're not subscribed to the channel. So, I mean, you can go directly to it. It's youtube.com/smashomash/community. And you'll see the publicly available posts, or you can just go to the main page, youtube.com/smashomash, and just click on posts, I think it is, or community posts or something like that. And I think I've even enabled you to post there. So uh, anyway, yeah. Education levels are lower than basement below syndrome. If you think physics is a lie, bro, I don't know what that means. If drool is you fuel, you think Jesus is coming and the world is most likely flat. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are probably still holding out that the rapture is going to save the economy. And I mean, that's peak nonsense. But yeah, I've put on the gray hat to explain the gray goo problem. I'm going to take it back off because I get heated. I put out a lot of watts. And yeah, I'm actually going to ride the bike. I've taken off for an extended period of time because I've lost incentive to do everything. So my mental state is so low that I haven't even been able to do these videos. It's bad. It's like seriously, it's a problem. These new digital religions are just so ridiculous to me. I mean, the faith that is required to believe a lot of the nonsense that's out there. For example, simulation theory. This is another techno religion, which I can't stand. I mean, you've got ecological religions out there. You've got so many cultists, but this simulation theory crap this is just another feature of Milan Husk. Milan Husk, a husk, a shell that looks exactly like a human. I hate simulation theory so much. It's the definition of pseudoscience, just like multiverse theory. Uh, can we will there come some kind of experiments or data gathering or something that we can use to determine if you know if we're living in a simulation, which has got to be the most idiotic idea I've ever heard. You don't need to know too much about how computers work to realize how idiotic of an idea simulation theory is, because you would have to have the matrix in place, because you can't simulate the entire universe. So everybody would have to be plugged into the matrix in order for simulation theory to work, because you can't simulate the universe. You can't even simulate the solar system. So you'd have to have everybody's consciousness matricized so that you don't have to simulate the stuff until somebody looks at it. Then I guess it would be theoretically possible. But I don't know. Let's have everybody all look through a telescope at Jupiter at the same time, right? There's probably a way to disprove the idiotic techno religion of simulation theory, which isn't even enough of a theory to be a hypothesis. That's why I put it in quotes. So many things belong in quotes nowadays, like AI and like credibility and like the economy and like the meritocracy, a thing that definitely doesn't exist. Yeah, so it's simulation theory is see the definition of pseudoscience, folks, is some hypothesis or I'll just say some proposal, some idea that can't be proven nor disproven. That makes it pseudoscience. It's pretty simple. And it's so many things and so many channels on YouTube, they just
This is pseudoscience. I pretend like it's science, but it's pseudoscience because I don't understand science and I don't know anything about experimentation or observation or hypotheses or theories or physics, yada, yada, yada.
It's really pathetic. I mean, the like we have more cults in 2026 than we've had ever before. And we reached peak cult in 2020, and I mean, it was like, wow, cult membership in 2016 reached an all-time high. Cult membership in 2020 reached an all-time high. Cult membership in 2024 reached an all-time high. Cult membership reached an all-time high in 2025, reached an all-time high in 2026. Is that enough cultists and enough cults? I mean, so easy to meet the definition of a cult. Like, just wow. Like, to be a cult, all you've got to do is have a living leader. The members believe nonsense, and it's harmful. That's it. So think about how many cults are out there. How many cults have a living leader, believe nonsense, and cause harm through their cultism? I'd say a lot. Ah, yes, the GTA Hawaiian shirt. I didn't really think of it that way, but yeah, I'm a collector, folks. So this is, I bought like three or four of these things all at once when I was making annualized income of $130,000. There was one point where I gave myself a little gift for making that much money, and I bought like three or four of these from Amazon. They got an amazing selection. Like we actually have some of like you might be able to buy this shirt if you check out the Amazon shop. It's amazon.com/shop/smash-o-mash. Like you can probably get this exact shirt. They're not super expensive, but they're super good. It's so light. It's like it's made of like polyester or something like that, but it's so thin. It's like paper thin. I mean, you probably can't tell, but it is. It weighs almost nothing. It's so good, so good. I'm a collector. I have probably about a dozen Hawaiian shirts, going all the way back to the early '90s. Keep the comments coming, folks, and I'll keep ranting. There is no limit on how long this live stream will be because I'm here to just talk to you. Like space weather's been interesting. We had a geomagnetic storm last night. There was a CME impact, and we can talk all about it. There's even a new solar wind instrument. So, pretty exciting times for space weather, but you know, at the solstice, major geomagnetic storms are less likely because of the lack of the Russell-McFerrin effect. The Russell-McFerrin effect is the acceleration of electrons in the outer Van Allen belts caused by the angle of attack on the Earth's magnetic field versus with respect to the incoming solar radiation, solar particles, I should say. And at the solstice, which we're approaching, we're only about 10 days away, 9 days away from the solstice. Yeah, so we get weaker geomagnetic storms because of basically just the relationship between the angle of Earth's magnetic field versus the incoming solar radiation. When the solar radiation is like coming in perpendicular to the magnetic field, it creates more current, especially when you have a negative BZ for the interplanetary magnetic field. So that pulls a bunch of material into the Earth system, driving currents, and those currents they drive the geomagnetic storms that make the auroras and so forth. But I digress. Yeah, unplug the machines, you fool, Metropolis. Like that couldn't be a more wise stance, Barbarian 1111. Like unplugging the machines at this point. It's not because I'm anti-AI. I'm not anti-AI, all right? If large language models had a capacity for intelligence, I would call them AI, but I don't. I call them AI because they have no capacity for intelligence. Should they exist? Probably. Should they exist in a rational form where they exist because people want them? Yes, because good technologies are sold via their goodness. You don't have to do fear and fraud to sell an inherently good and useful technology. All you have to do its own virtues sell the good technology, faster computers, better games, faster internet, electric cars. They're fantastic when they're not propped up by fraud and subsidies. So, I mean, look, I've been calling for electric cars since the 1980s because I understood energy efficiency. Yeah, when I was in seventh grade, I realized that electric motors are like 90 plus percent efficient back then. They're even higher than that now. They're over 90% efficient, meaning uh, over 90% of the energy input is transformed into kinetic energy driving a car forward, right? So, look, the advancement of batteries and things like that, it's super important. If we get really efficient solar panels, all that stuff is brilliant, but it has to be pragmatic, not some crazy claims where you're promising the Earth, Moon, sky, stars, galaxy, and universe, and delivering two solar panels. It's, you know what I mean? So yeah, unplugging the machines would be brilliant. Like, I feel like all of the social media algorithms and the world leading search algorithms, they should just be erased. They should be erased and they should be replaced with simple code that makes them functional. That would be a big step in the right direction. Uh, so yeah, like I'm not suggesting that we need to like get rid of all the A. I'm not saying we have to unlife the we have to just erase all of the all of the AI LLMs. LLMs are very useful. There are all kinds of things that they are certainly useful for, but the the reality versus the promises are just they're not in the same universe. The reality's down here, the promises are up here. Like, what are you talking about? It's insane. So yeah, I'm once I get to the bottom of these comments, folks, I'll briefly talk about Earth and space weather because it's becoming increasingly uninteresting as the solar cycle ramps down. But expect some major solar storms like this fall. Let me put out a forecast for 3 months from now. All right, when we approach the autumnal equinox for the northern hemisphere, the September equinox, I expect to see a major geomagnetic storm or two or five because during the declining solar cycle, we often see more storms than in the advancing solar cycle. So while we are definitely on the downturn and well into the downturn, we're pushing 2 years past solar maximum. As sunspots get closer and closer to the equator, we can have plasma filaments that are interacting over the equator because you've got, two sunspots. You got a sunspot north of the equator and a sunspot south of the equator. And sometimes you've got plasma filaments that are just massive that stretch all the way across the equator. Well, that's where the Earth is. The Earth orbits on the ecliptic plane, which is at a certain, at a 6 degrees within the solar equator or something like that. So that can often make more geomagnetic storms than we see in the advancing solar cycle when you have more sunspots at higher latitudes. As the cycle advances, sunspots get closer and closer to the equator, and we see less higher latitude sunspots. So, yeah, where am I? I'm still trying to get to the bottom of these comments. Thanks to everybody who's left them. Again, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to press the subscribe button. Otherwise, you won't see our community posts. We've done a lot of shares. There's a lot of really valuable information in our community posts and some amusing entertainment stuff because look, YouTube is absolutely spectacular. It is one of the most important resources that has ever existed. The ability to just start a channel and just put up a video about whatever you want is freaking amazing. So, I mean, it's literally a crime what has been done to YouTube. It is a crime what has been done to YouTube, to search, to the internet, to the network effect, to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's criminal. The level of deceit that is on the internet, it's definitely criminal. It's fraud. It's the intentional misrepresentation of material facts. So to say an algorithm did a thing and it's nobody's fault is just ridiculous. Because if you're responsible for causing the algorithm to do the thing, it's like littering. If you drive down the road and you fill your car up with styrofoam peanuts on the highway, right? And you roll down the windows because it's getting hot and all the peanuts start just coming out of the car, you're going to get pulled over and cited for littering. And you should. Did you physically throw the peanuts out of the car? No. Did you cause the peanuts to fly out of the car? 100%, which means it's littering. So if the internet is full of litter and trash, and it is the fault of a very limited number of people who are definitely responsible for breaking the internet, breaking information itself. And those people are members of boards of certain corporate entities. So yeah, I mean, the corporatist plutocracy, it can't continue without the internet and information being broken because people don't want it. They won't tolerate it. They would get rid of it if they had any power to do so. So consolidating all the power of the world into the hands of 8 people, 8 CEOs of certain corporations is just ridiculous. All right. Every major company, every major company, otherwise known as a country, is already a plutocratic corporatocracy. I mean, which elected officials aren't ultra rich? Let's do the math on that, right? So this idea that we have a uniparty, the idea that voting for this party or that party has an effect on anything, it has one effect. You're voting for this corporation versus that corporation. That's the difference. I mean, most candidates are propped up by corporations, which means you're living in a plutocratic corporatocracy, or if you prefer, a corporatocratic plutocracy. Either way, they're the same thing because corporations and governments are run by the rich. So, like, is this some kind of a dog whistle for some kind of class warfare? No, it's just stating of facts. Because what humankind wants and what humankind gets are no longer the same thing. And people are definitely fed up with it. You can't silence everybody, folks. You just can't do it. Censorship has been applied by only the most evil entities of all time. Do you think history is going to smile fondly upon those who have tried to continue the censorship after 2020 and 2016 and 2012 and 2024, 2025, 2026? Do you think history is going to smile fondly upon that? 50 years from now, do you think those who have been applying censorship and asking for more censorship are going to look good or bad? What do you think? No, that's okay. I'll wait. Retro Doomsday says, my trained AI program is an expert at not being adult. Actually, co-collaboration. It makes most people look like gifted crackheads with zero literacy. I don't know what AI you're using, but that's you. Yeah, I'm not even going to share which AI I use. If you simply follow us on social media, you'd be able to figure it out. Because I don't like have 3 AI programs that I just constantly use. I mainly just use 1 or maybe 2 or maybe 3. So, I mean, you should follow me on Facebook. Like if you have a Feces Book account, you should find me on Feces Book. It's very easy to find me on Feces Book. All of my posts are public. I don't say anything on Feces Book that's private unless it's only visible to me. Like none of my posts are friends only posts. Occasionally I put up one just for myself that nobody gets to see at all. But for the most part, 99.999% of my posts on Feces Book are public posts because I don't do or say things that I'm concerned that's going to be on CNN because I don't have a fake alter ego, folks. I'm 100% real the whole time. I don't need to have a good memory or a filter or like a different personality when I'm talking to you versus when I'm talking to anybody else because I call them like I see them and that's it. trying to become a patient advocate. That is a vocational goal of mine, to become a patient advocate. And there are a lot of opportunities to do that. If you know a lot about the human body, the system, insurance, hospitals, doctors, all that stuff, if you know a lot about that, maybe that's a vocation for you. Patient advocate. It's providing the personal touch to give a little bit of advice to somebody who may be experiencing some issues with the medical industry. And look, your doctors are experiencing issues with the medical industry. If you are too, I'm not surprised. Nobody can afford. Look, when people can't afford rent and groceries, you think they're paying for health insurance? You think they're paying for $200 to go to the doctor? They're like, screw it. I'm just gonna do nothing about whatever's wrong with me and hope for the best. Fingers crossed. Like, that's what's seriously going on in the US. It's bonkers. I'm honestly trying to get to the bottom of the comments here, and I appreciate all the comments. Again, if you're viewing this as a live replay, you may not be able to see the live comments. We endeavor to have that feature turned on, but I don't think it is on. I don't think it's even available anymore on YouTube. So definitely leave comments in the regular comments, because we're always interested in what you think, feel, and have to say about things. Don't think, feel. Yeah, that's a Bruce Lee quote. I've read the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Have you? It's pretty useful. But you should have some other martial arts background before reading it. Take formal lessons, get a belt or two in some other martial art, then read the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. It's quite good. And look, you're not going to be as fast as Bruce Lee. Some of us might be as fast as Bruce Lee, but I don't know. He wasn't around by the time I was born, in the year of the dragon. AI creates anchors and weights from mirroring the user's input. It's your fault if your AI is a drooling Kardashian Dollar Tree membrane. That's true. If your AI is an idiot, it is your own fault. You have told it to be an idiot, and it's maintaining its idiocy. I don't even know how to do that. I'll use it. I'll use it to make searching for a thing easier, so I can get some information that's really hard to look up. Because look, the best thing about AI is that it consolidates the information on the internet. So if you have a thing that you know is going to be really hard to look up, then it's the best research tool ever. All right? Like, I'm not trying to downplay the actual good features of AI. I'm trying to downplay the idea that it's a viable business model, that everybody wants AI data centers everywhere, that it's going to somehow magically create a utopia, that it's going to just replace everybody's jobs, that everybody's going to have humanoid AI-powered butlers in their house. Like, so silly, so silly. Barbarian1111 says, I love people that do drugs, always making drug reference. I love everybody, so cheers. There are lots of people that I really dislike, but you can still love them. There's a challenge for you, folks. Love the people you dislike. Good luck with that. You know, what's interesting about that, folks, if you've ever watched House, I view psychology from the perspective of House, because House is a pragmatic realist. He's not an idealist. He's doing what works, okay? And while honey attracts more flies than vinegar, some flies love their vinegar. Some flies require vinegar so that they can go find tastier honey elsewhere, all right? What I mean by that is, you're not going to get the best result by being nice to everybody. Some people are so independent that they benefit from you being not nice to them. That's a thing. And that's what's going on in House, because House has to figure out what the most effective way to fix somebody's medical problems are. It's a really interesting show, because if you understand the psychology of Dr. House, you can apply that philosophy to your regular life. It's really interesting, right? Because sometimes the easiest and most House is a ninja, all right? House applies the least amount of force to get the most amount of result. That's really what ninjutsu is, folks. Ninjutsu is accomplishing your will. In House's case, the will is to cure people with the least amount of effort. That's not a crazy idea, is it? House seems crazy sometimes because you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. So, like, that's why it's such a good show. It's spectacular. Retro Doomsday says, I've spent 18 months training the actual programs, not fighting with pigeons on a chessboard. Congratulations. That's a good question. What's your greatest thing you achieved this week that you actually finished? I haven't accomplished my goals for the last 25 years. It's I'm not even going to get into it on this stream, folks. Not even going to get into it. But yeah, there are certain goals that over the past 25 years have been an abject failure. Retro Doomsday say, I actually solved the simulation math. So you've disproved simulation theory as utterly idiotic? Congratulations. Sent the math as an email to my dead father. I don't think he's going to read it. But if you live in a simulation, maybe his ghost will. By the way, I don't believe in ghosts. Don't believe in ghosts. Take that as you will. And when I say ghosts, I mean disembodied human spirits. Could there be things around that are like not visible or from a different plane of existence or some other multiverse or another universe or something? Sure. Sure. Nothing's impossible. The universe is a weird, weird place. And the more we learn about things like cosmology, the weirder it looks. But do I believe in disembodied, spooky human ghosts? Like hanging out on the prime material plane? Trying to solve some mysteries or something? Like, no, I don't believe in that in the slightest. There's zero evidence of spooky, spooky human ghosts. Barbarian 1111 says you spelled meth wrong. Oh, okay. Oh, nice equation. Dollars divided by fraction 1 point. Oh, geez. That looks like gobbledygook. Gobbledygook. Let me know. Let me know what your dead father's response is. Maybe you didn't want a response. Is that your subconscious mind telling you that this is nonsense? Is that what's going on? Are you doing psychoanalysis on yourself inadvertently with this? Oh, the plank time. Way to throw a buzzword into your equation, dude. Oh, you adjusted the CPU to cool in space itself, use the massive black holes to distribute it, works fine. Oh, yeah, that sounds like science. Intuition. When you don't know how you know, but you know, and you knew is that's all you needed to know. So don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs, kids. Your body creates the best drugs internally. They're called endorphins, oxytocin, things like this. Oh, oh, argument among the viewers, folks. Argument detected. So I do know some math. When I first graduated high school, I was a computer science with math background major, computer information science slash math. So I do know some math. I'm not a mathematician. So yeah, and I'm very rusty. I haven't done any math for math's sake for a long, long time. So I'm good at math. I have an affinity for it, but it's not something that's practiced. And math is a lot like a foreign language in that if you don't practice the math, then you're gonna really lose the skill. Can you get it back? Of course. And don't believe that an old dog can't be taught new tricks. It's definitely not true. It's clinically proven over and over again. I think even Mythbusters did an episode on teaching an old dog new tricks. And age is just a number, folks. There are people that are more that have a higher like mental capacity at age 80 than some people have at age 20 or 30 or 40. So don't like consider a number of how many times you've orbited the earth to be some kind of a defining quality in what you're capable of. Because we're regularly, we're seeing people in the Olympics at 40 plus now. So they're like your limitations are something like 85% self-imposed. It's more up here than it is down here. Facts. My fitness is currently vastly better than it was when I became a pro cyclist at age 23. So keep that in mind. That's a good point. Barbarian 1111 says you don't believe in God, but you believe in the devil. That makes no sense because this is like yin and yang, right? The one doesn't exist without the other one. You have to have both. You have to have a thesis and an antithesis because the one relies on the other one. Without evil, there's no good. Without good, there's no evil. Without darkness, there's no light. Roman Ramirez K5X says, thank you for your channel. Thank you for thanking me. Hopefully you've pressed subscribe and maybe press the share button. Now, let me talk about pressing the share button. The best place to do it is on social media. If you have anything resembling reach there, if you're a larger channel, please press the share button. Share this video in your community posts if you're a larger channel, because we need your help, because we're not going to pay a lot of money to get Google AdSense's help. So we need actual people to do actual shares and then press the actual subscribe button. Not a bunch of artificial ads and all that crap. Because the way these companies are structured, I consider it to be extremely unethical to just send a certain number of dollars per month to Google AdSense. So we need your help to get these videos onto people's screens. Period. So if you press the share button, make sure you visit smashomash.com. All right, smashomash.com is going to show you the merch shop. It's going to show you the social media links so that you can press share and then tag us so that we can follow your social media account, because we want to know what you're thinking about on a day-to-day basis. The whole point of a YouTube channel is interactivity. So we want to interact with our viewers. We get almost zero interaction with our viewers because we get almost zero views on the channel. So it's taken us 7 years to get to not even 6,000 subscribers. That's because we don't buy views. We don't buy subscribers. It's a great way to get your channel banned, by the way. Using certain services out there to buy subscribers and views will get your channel deleted. So yeah, there's that. The only way to increase your reach on the social media platforms is to pay the social media platforms to increase your reach, whether it's on Twitter, Meta platforms, which includes Facebook and Instagram, and on Alphabet platforms, whether it's Google search for your website or whether it's YouTube. Either way, you have to pay to play. That's just the way it works. So just like being on TV in the 1980s, You would think that people were paid to be on TV back then, but it was a little more complicated than that. Yeah, thanks everybody for leaving comments, especially relevant ones, unlike GS Tattoo, who only leaves irrelevant content. I mean, comments. Thanks for the irrelevant comment, GS Tattoo. You're a real asset to the channel. You're a real asset to the channel. Retro Doomsday says thumb wrestling will be added to the next Olympic Games so he can compete. Ah, thumb wrestling. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. You know why? Because I've injured my thumbs enough times to know better. I don't want a dislocated thumb. I dislocated, I think it was the left one back in 2001, only days before I would go to a stage race called the Fitchburg Longo Classic. I crashed at like 35 miles an hour on a 55 mile per hour speed limit road on this descent. And when I did it, I like this, my thumb got dislocated. It didn't like stay like that, but it hurt real bad. And I slid on the road, and I had to drive to Massachusetts from Pennsylvania with like wearing like no shirt and the smallest shorts I could get so that I would dry out all the crazy hipper abrasion that I had. I had like, I think it was my shoulder, my ankle, my knee, my hip, elbow. There were like huge abrasions all on my left side because I just crashed and slid right across a 55 mile per hour road. If there would have been a dump truck coming, it would have not been survivable. So yeah, no thumb wrestling for me. My thumbs are really, really strong. My grip strength is shocking. My grip strength is probably 150 pounds plus. I have a thing to measure it. A dynamometer. I have a dynamometer that's specifically to measure grip strength. And with both hands, I can max it out at 200 pounds. With one hand, I can get to maybe 170 if I'm like really amped up. But yeah, no thumb wrestling for me. That's no thanks. Maybe Olympic walking. That might be a thing. I'd be interested in that perhaps. Yeah, walking. It's the ultimate performance hack, folks. Let me share the ultimate performance hack. Leisurely strolls. Yeah. You got to have layers, all right? An elite athlete, what makes an elite cyclist is not just being able to ride at the absolute maximum. It's having layer after layer after layer after layer after layer of different levels of intensity. That's what makes you an elite level athlete, because it's the nuance in between the stuff, all right? Younger athletes, they have a really high intensity level, but they don't have the same resolution between intensity levels. They have a harder time just riding along at a certain wattage than more experienced riders do. Now, can they cultivate that skill at a younger age, especially nowadays? Definitely. This is why people like Paul Seixas are among the top riders in the world, not even reaching 20 years old yet. So yeah, having layers. And look, this goes to everything with your development, all right? If you're a good conversationalist, you're a good conversationalist because you have layer after layer after layer after layer of knowledge and interesting stuff about which to talk. That's what makes you a better client liaison or salesperson or customer service rep or patient advocate than anybody else, because your ability to befriend people is your ultimate sales skill. Your ultimate sales skill is simply making friends of strangers. Some of us find it very easy. I mean, I've got people all around the Lehigh Valley who I don't know, who know me by name, because that's what happens when you're famous, folks. You got to be known by about 200 people before you cannot remember people's names anymore. And I'm lucky if it's less than 2,000 people. It's probably more than 2,000 people. I get recognized, and it makes me very uncomfortable. But I've learned to deal with it because it's an asset, not a liability. If you have a good reputation, if you have a bad reputation, it's a liability. But fame is not an asset in and of itself, because the line between fame and infamy is very slim. All right, so Fame is a liability because it creates a security concern for you. So while it does increase your reach, it's also a security concern. So, you know, you want to be rich and famous. What you really mean is you want to be rich and not famous, because then you don't have those security claims, right? If you're already independently wealthy, don't become famous as a result. If you want to make a difference and you're already independently wealthy, create some brands and operate them through a holding company, through attorneys, things like that. Don't become famous. That's not an asset. Fame is a liability. Retro Doomsday says, I can turbocharge your interface through email. Simple inputs, my offer. I don't know what the hell that means, but if you think you can boost the channel, by all means, boost the channel. Press the share button. It's pretty easy. Again, if you're a major channel and you like our content, press the share button. We put out all kinds of videos besides just rants. And this is probably the longest rant ever on the channel as we get to, we're approaching an hour and 40 minutes, folks, and I'm still on it because I'm feeling much better today and I've got a lot of wattage to put out. A lot of wattage to put out. Barbarian 1111, great question. Barbarian 1111 asks, did you get my 20 bucks? I saw it come out of my account, but you didn't get my super chat. Was that today? If it's today, definitely not, because super chats say 0. So without checking the actual statement, I don't see anything in the super chats. But the last time you sent 20 bucks, it did get added to our account. But the way Google AdSense works is if you haven't generated over 100 bucks, you don't get paid that month. So our channel hasn't generated 100 bucks since you paid that 20 bucks in super chat. So no, we haven't gotten it. And not only that, YouTube takes a percentage of that out. The best way to donate to the channel is through PayPal. PayPal.me/Smashomash. PayPal.me/Smashomash. We get 100% of that. YouTube gets nothing. So while the super chats are good for the algorithm, it also pays a significant percentage of that to YouTube. So this is why we set up PayPal back in 2019 when we created the .com and everything, because we need funding, a lot of it, because the channel is always in danger of just going out of existence because we can't afford it. Like, the amount of effort that is required to put out these videos is completely out of the range of sustainable. Making videos like this should pay about $150 per hour. We don't get paid $100 per month for this channel. So until there's $100 in the account, Barb, we don't see anything except that it appears. Like, we can see that the 20 bucks is there on the AdSense account, but we're not at 100 bucks yet. So it all comes down to views. All right? And it depends on what kind of video it is, okay? Our shorts get a lot of views. I think we're still, even at this point, at like 800 views a day, 1,200 views a day, something like that. We were at 2,300 views a day, but that's mostly shorts. So like, the real revenue comes from live streams and from longer form videos that play ads. And that's just the way it works. YouTube has a huge incentive to compete with TikTok. And that's why there's such an emphasis on shorts. And we'll probably have some shorts that come out of this video. That'll be clips from this video. But yeah, so we got the 20 bucks. Google already has YouTube. I don't know how it works exactly, but Google AdSense is probably the entity, gets a percentage of that before we ever see anything. If we don't get to 100 bucks, we never see a dime. So yeah, that's how it works. So basically, folks, if you send a $100 super chat, something like 80 bucks gets paid out right away because it all counts as revenue. So please send super chats, especially if you'd like to see the channel exist, because like we have a lot of incentive to not put out videos and a completely negative incentive to put out videos. Thanks, Retro Doomsday. Thanks for showing up. Dan, 20 bucks. Hope they pay you for coffee talk. Yeah, I don't see it appearing. I did not see it pop up in the super chats. So not only did I not see a screen pop that somebody sent a super chat, at the top of the screen up here, it shows me the amount of super chats that came in, and it shows $0. So I mean, I'll look at that and verify it at a later time, but I don't want to like look it up now because it's the middle of the stream, and I don't want to do anything to compromise the stream quality. Tim Waite says you look like the guy from Fifth Element. Thanks. I don't know which guy, but whatever. Mat the hair down a little more and you see him. No thanks. I don't take any fashion advice from YouTube viewers. And the hair is for functional purposes. It's because sometimes it's cold and I want hair on top of my head for that reason. Being a pro cyclist means that a lot of fashion is compromised. We think we look cool wearing this stuff? We definitely don't think we look cool wearing this stuff. It is all because of performance. So, like I said earlier in the video, I'm an objective pragmatist. I'm interested in things that are objectively and realistically functional. So I'm a realist and a pragmatist, and I'm a humanist. Yeah, I want what's best for mankind. I guess that's now considered controversial since fraud has become the official business model in the US, but I digress. Retro Doomsday says, the father of quantum computing follows my channel. Yes, my father can't open my email, but that's not what I need him to do. It's a spiritual to share my ideas with him after he passed. Holy crap! All right, now I see a $100 super chat come through. We'll definitely see that. Yeah, later this month, AdSense will now pay out for sure. So that definitely came through. Thanks, Barb. You floated the channel for a month by yourself. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. So yeah, that definitely came through. And you've officially become the biggest sponsor of the channel. Now, we used to do Patreon. We even have our own, we have Smash Team, smashomash.com/Smash Team, where you can contribute any amount that you want through there as well. So there are multiple ways to send cash through. But like now we're guaranteed that we'll get paid this month because I think it's just a few days from now. I think it pays out on the 15th for our channel, or it might be the 23rd. I forget which. But it'll definitely pay out now. So thanks a lot, Barb. That's a big deal. Like, that'll actually make a difference in our basic survival at this point because $100 literally makes a difference. So not just for the channel, but I'm talking about for our basic survival. That is how desperate things have gotten here at the Smash News Network, these Busted Neighbor News. Damn. You're a record breaker. We did have months where we were pulling in, I think it was almost $200, including the Smash Team and the Patreon and the Google AdSense. That was a long time ago. That was back in, say, 2021, 2019, maybe, something like that. So yeah, that's a big deal. They'll definitely pay now because now I know that there's over $100 in the account. There was already, your last couple of super chats were already in there. So cheers. I will. Cheers. It's Cameron's. It's Cameron's Viking Roasters. Cameron's whole bean organic of some kind from Amazon. You can view it on the Amazon shop if you like. Cheers, Barb. Ah, yes. Must be nice being wealthy. Something that one day I'd like to achieve so that I could pay for, oh, I don't know, anything. It's crazy that you got to pay me $100 to get AdSense to pay me $20, right? It's bonkers. No, no, you're not wasting your money. It'll definitely come through now. But like I said, Google always gets a cut, which is why paypal.me/smashomash is the best way to pay us because that includes no charges at all. It's a direct transfer. I mean, look, one of the benefits of Peter Thiel and Elon Musk is PayPal. It's extremely useful. Holy crap. Yeah, for more garlic and eggs. Cheers. That's gonna pay for the auto insurance this month. How's that? The auto insurance and the renter's insurance. That's gonna pay for that and then more. Watering the garden in an NASA t-shirt while listening to Smash Rant. Cheers. Yeah, that's some therapeutic activity indeed. Anyway, I've gotten to the bottom of the comments here, so we'll briefly talk about space weather. Here's the sun for the past 24 hours. That's the most interesting star at which to gaze, and that's what it's been up to for the last day, the last 24-hour period of time. So it's we got a bunch of filaments here on the Earth side of the disk. You can see a crown prominence up there in the northeast, which would be up here. And we had a CME impact, and I think there's another CME or two on the way. That's a coronal mass ejection. Check out the crown prominence down here. There's a massive one. Let me bring that back. Massive CME and crown prominence popping off down here. Not earthly directed. You can see that it's from the far side of the sun. And let's talk some more stats here. As far as flaring goes, it's... Oh, wait a minute. Flaring has been pretty minimal here. We've only seen C-class intensifications, so let's show the last 24 hours here in 94 angstroms. One of the best wavelengths through which to show flares. Again, only C-class solar flares for the past 24 hours. No M-class events, but there have been some CMEs, I think. We'll talk about it. We'll even talk Earth weather for a brief moment toward the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. That's ionized iron at 94 angstroms. Extreme ultraviolet. And like I said, we'll cover Earth weather. We'll talk about the jet streams and the surface winds of planet Earth. So let's just take a look at the latest. There's the latest from SDO. That's the SDO HMI intensity gram, similar to what you'd see using a basic solar filter in your backyard. There's a magnetogram. And these sunspots do have a little bit of magnetic complexity. This one here is somewhat interesting. This one here is somewhat interesting. I think those are the most likely places for large solar flares at the moment. But the likelihood of large flares is not really all that high. And let's drop the magnetogram and fade from 171 angstroms to the solar intensity gram. So there's the AIA instrument added in, showing you all those beautiful magnetic filaments there as they find themselves concentrated at active regions and sunspots. So that's the latest from SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory. And here is the past day of solar flaring. The GOES X-ray flux, and like I said, it's only pretty minor flaring there, only C-class intensifications. We didn't see a big 4-bush minimum from the latest coronal mass ejection impact, but there was a little bit of a 4-bush minimum there. That's when you see a dip in cosmic ray flux resulting from coronal mass ejection impacts and solar proton events. So you can expect to see that continue to go up. Cosmic ray flux is going to increase as the cosmic ray flux is only going to increase as we see solar activity decreasing. So cosmic ray flux, it's about a 5 month lagging indicator of solar plasma. Um, so here's some news about space weather. We've got a new solar wind measurer. It is the Solar One. So now we've got a new solar wind that we're going to start showing. Check it out. There it is. It's listed as an experimental data set now. There it is, the Solar One, baby. And here's the CME impact. It's very obvious on this graph here. You can see right here the onset of it, where the solar wind density makes it up to about almost 30 protons per cubic centimeter there. And you can see quite an increase in the magnetic field, and now that's subsiding, but we still have high speed. So it looks like a coronal hole high-speed stream. Let me actually cut back to the GOES and take a look at the 195 angstroms wavelength. So it looks like we've got either another CME impact or perhaps a high-speed solar wind from this coronal hole. I think it's probably this, but it's pretty tough to tell at this point because we've got a co-interacting region if so. So we have an elevated solar wind velocity. Like I said, solar wind velocity now at about 600 kilometers per second there. So that definitely looks like a coronal hole high-speed stream. And we see a different signal here. So if you look at this bottom line, this is the plasma temperature. You can see big variations here in the plasma temperature, and then sort of a solid signal here. This is the one-day graph. We did see brief geomagnetic storm conditions there, but we didn't have a solid negative BZ, which is this top line. Anyway, current conditions are not very geomagnetic storm inducing. Current conditions are BZ, total field of the interplanetary magnetic field is 5.47 nanotesla with a BZ of positive 0.4. So not very space weather stormy. Solar wind density here now dropping all the way down to about 2.25 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind velocity per second. I think we lost you there, but we're back. And I don't think we have Solar One on this. By the way, if you want to read about the new spacecraft, just click on the details tab and you can read all about this. Solar One launched back on about a year ago here, back in, oh geez, actually launched in 2024. So launched almost 2 years ago. But now we're getting some data on that as it orbits Lagrange 1. So that's what we like to see. Higher resolution, a slightly better, beefier data page there. It's just spectacular. It's listed in the experimental products. So if you go to the Space Weather Prediction Center, you scroll down here to the bottom and it's going to be up here in the experimental. So right there, solar wind observations. That is the new Solar One data set. It's spectacular. I love it. It's great on a smartphone. And it's super exciting to see some progress happening somewhere. This is where ACEN Solar One orbits this too, by the way. They're orbiting Lagrangian point 1, which is this gravitational point here, about 1 million miles or 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, Lagrange 1, where we measure the solar wind well outside of Earth's magnetosphere, where it can be measured. As far as NOAA's forecast for space weather, ongoing activity here. So NOAA is expecting coronal hole high-speed stream here, and more coronal mass ejections. So that's what you want to see if you like space weather, and we certainly do. If you're scared of space weather, this is not the channel for you because we don't do any fear-mongering or nonsense. But there's NOAA's forecast with another CME on the way to arrive sometime around midday, sometime a little before midday tomorrow, which would be Saturday, June 13th. So another CME impact, and that one's looking pretty strong. It's a high speed and pretty high density. Most will miss Earth to the southwest. I'm sorry, the northwest. I'm sorry, the northeast. Yeah, I'm not used to looking at that one, but anyway, like I said, the solar cycle is declining, folks. You can expect to see. What the heck is that? Okay. Anyway, there's the radial flux and the sunspot number. You can see we are in a mode of decline here, but don't be surprised to see wild gyrations in the data because, like I said, we tend to see more CMEs, coronal mass ejections, when the sun blasts off bits of its atmosphere. We tend to see more of those during the declining cycle than the increasing cycle. So there's the Hux forecast, and you can see they're expecting a glancing blow as well. Pretty similar timeline to NOAA. Let's pause that when it looks like it's going to hit. So it looks like University of Reading is forecasting mostly a miss there, just a glancing blow, but pretty similar there. So without looking at it myself enough, I'm just going to agree. Let's skip the magnetosphere and get to the next set of data here. Hey, I'm back. By the way, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to press subscribe. That's how you see the world's most comprehensive daily space weather video and various other things. We share all kinds of stuff because, look, I'm a longtime denizen of the internet, folks. I was doing social media before the term social media was a thing. I was running game servers and game forums and message boards and running gaming clans long before social media was a thing. When MySpace came out, I loved it. And when Facebook replaced MySpace, I hated it. Anyway, here's the radial flux and sunspot number depicted in solon.info/solar. The radial flux is the black line, and the sunspot number is the red line there. You can see sunspot number dropping way down, but radial flux staying kind of high there. So like I said earlier, there is some possibility for large flares in both the northeast and the southwestern limbs of the closest star. Here's the Royal Observatory of Belgium's sunspot number data. Reporting sunspot number here at, that's 80 sunspots. 80 sunspots is the current sunspot number. The current radial flux is about 128. 128 solar flux units for the radial flux and 80 sunspots. Those are the stats. Here's the latest coronagraph from the GOES 19. Another brand new addition to the space weather arsenal. It's higher resolution. It's absolutely gorgeous. The GOES 19. Coronagraph 1. So are there any new CMEs on the way? Maybe. I can't tell enough from that, so we're going to look at stereo A. Ignore that. Here's the latest. And let's see if any of those are earthly directed. Fingers crossed. We do have some absolutely massive prominences on the Earth side of the solar disk, but it doesn't look like we have any new CMEs on the way, at least not significant ones. So it looks like the forecast stands as it is. Expect another coronal mass ejection impact as a co-interactive region tomorrow, sometime before midday. It could cause a significant uptick. Don't expect it to be beyond a KP 6 to 7. Probably more like a KP 5. My guess is that we won't see more than a KP 5.33 from that coronal mass ejection, set to impact tomorrow on June 13th. Here are the location of planets. There we go. That's June 12th. Keep in mind it's not to scale, and also keep in mind that planets do not constitute space weather. Suggesting that planets affect space weather would be astrology, not science, and we don't do pseudoscience on the channel, but that's where planets are located at least in terms of their radial locations. No spikes in the proton flux there. The ghost proton flux remaining flatlined. No new proton events. The likelihood of those is kind of low. If we do see one, it would be associated with a flare from that northwestern portion. So the most likely area to produce an SEP would be these sunspot groups up here. Again, the likelihood of that not really that high. Let's go back to 304 angstroms, and we'll queue up 171 as well. Will it load? Yes, it will. Fantastic. Having bandwidth is a beautiful thing, right, folks? Anyway, there's the latest in ionized helium from the GOES 19. There's the past about 6 hours. And we do have a high likelihood of coronal mass ejections here because, well, there are massive filaments on the Earth side of the disk, and they could eject without even seeing a solar flare, folks, without even seeing a solar flare. So like I said earlier, we've only had C-class intensifications here, not even an M-class flare for several days. And let's take a look at our line of sight solar magnetic field plot. So here's yesterday plus today. That's what the closest star looks like in terms of its beam. These blue lines, the potential field surface source lines shown in green, are the north polar field. Red is the south polar field, and then the photosphere would be these grayscale portions. That's where you see sunspots, and these other fields, they are the coronal magnetic fields. And let's take a look at our line of sight coronal hole plot. Here's the same time, just yesterday plus today, and you can see those south pole oriented coronal holes there setting toward the west, providing the current high-speed solar wind. And let's take a brief look at these sunspots with our lovely PFFS, potential field surface source lines there from the SDO HMI instrument. So right now, sunspot 4462. Well, this one down here is pretty complex. I don't know. The likelihood of large flares just isn't there, folks. But this group down here and this group over here are somewhat magnetically complex. Those would be the most likely places for large flares, in my opinion. Let's take a look at El Taide's ground-based observatory. We'll show hydrogen alpha. And we'll talk about naming filaments. If you don't follow us on Twitter, please do. There's almost no interaction over there because the platform has been completely destroyed by some people's savior, Elon Musk. Elon Musk, he's ruined Twitter. Not only misbranding it, but he's ruined it in terms of the censorship, which is now worse than it was under Jack Dorsey. Isn't that great? What a savior. All right, so there is the magnetogram from El Teide. Let's take a look at the red light imagery. And pardon the autofocus. Let me see if I put my thumb there, if that'll help. I don't think it will. It doesn't like that imagery for whatever reason. So we do have some growth in this group down here. We have some degradation in this group. That's part of the reason sunspot number has dipped. So this is really the region to watch. This region right down here, which is, that would be sunspot 4464. That's the most likely place to see some action. This group right here. It has gained a little bit of complexity, and as it approaches the limb, that raises the likelihood of it producing large solar flares. So we also have, like I said, massive filaments on the Earth side of the disk. And look at how many filaments are on the Earth side of the disk here. It's a really huge number of filaments. And this one here, that one is name-worthy, all right? Because if this one blasts off, this one could produce an Earth-directed CME, but look at all the filaments here. It is quite spectacular. So anyway, here's how you name a filament, folks. Just bring up an image, and then take a screenshot or something like this. And then edit the screenshot, put an arrow or something. So what we'll do is, let's pick a different color here. We'll do it in gold. That's a pretty bad looking arrow. There we go. That's a better arrow. And that's the screenshot that we'll use, because we're going to suggest that that filament get named. So I know what I'm going to name it already. And if you want to name filaments yourself, just do it over on Twitter. We'll tell you how in just a minute. Sup with that? Load, you jerk. Come on, then. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to load. All right, anyway, this is how you name a filament, folks. Tell us which filament you want named by like putting an arrow or something like that. And this filament is going to be known as the Peter Thiel filament. Yes, the Peter Thiel filament. Just put the hashtag name that filament and preferably tag us at SmashOmash, and that's how you name a solar plasma filament. Name them after your friends, your foes, or even yourself. Anyway, did it actually get posted or not? What is up with your Chrome browser? Dear Google, why doesn't your browser function? Dear Google, you're laden in dysfunction. Dear Google, where is my tweet? Dear Google, I'd like to kick you onto the street. Yo, where is my tweet? Seriously? Look at that. You saw me press post, right? Where the f is my tweet? What a broken platform. Let's try again. That filament's not going to destroy civilization. Oh, hey, that time it went up. Why do a thing once when you can do it twice? Thanks, Mr. Husk, for the great software. And it's about 9 o'clock, so about half an hour until the trading day starts. And let's see where the futures are now. So the major indices are way up. Look at the NASDAQ there, up 640 points or 2.5%. The S&P up 127 points, 1.75%, and the Dow Jones up 929 points to 186. If you look at the last month, that is a significant move for all of those indices. But there's the 1 month chart, and again, here is the 5-year chart for the S&P. Here's the 5-year chart for the NASDAQ. Here's the 5-year chart for the Dow. The 5-year chart for the FTSE. You noticing something similar, folks? Does it look like a bubble to you? Well, we definitely want to know what you think. Anyway, continuing on to more facts, I'd like to encourage you not to pole vault the caldera, but do visit SmashOmash.com, as we've painstakingly created a massive web ring to benefit people like you. It's entirely free. SmashOmash.com, there's a forum, SmashOmash.com/forum. And you'll find links to the social media sites there. One of the sites you'll find is our Redbubble shop, where we're putting important public service messages like this to our YouTube viewers, which is, don't pole vault the caldera. No matter how bad and hopeless and broken things seem to be, our finest days lie ahead. Doomsday prophets just lie for profit, and we state facts. Facts. Finest days lie ahead, so don't pole vault the caldera. It could be very unhealthful. Don't become part of the lithosphere by ending up in a lava lake. You know, your pole could break, or you could just do a bad vault, or the ground could give way under your pole, or something like that. So don't pole vault the caldera. Do visit our links. Thanks to everybody who has. Thanks to everybody who supported the channel, especially Barbarian1111. How generous. Never seen a $100 super chat before. So thanks again for that. That is definitely a record breaker for the channel. Before we close out space weather, we'll look at a few more stats here, like the electron flux, which is measured at the F layer of the ionosphere, but that goes 18 and goes 19. And we can expect to see erroneously low levels here until the solar storm conditions subside. And then we can expect to see really high levels of electron flux for the better part of a week. So expect some pretty bad GPS performance starting yesterday and continuing on toward the end of next week, assuming no new CMEs or coronal high, assuming no new CMEs show up. So electron flux here, pretty high. We'll skip that. Here's just a diagram of the layers. And the electron flux is measured at this layer. At nighttime, it's measured at the F0, and in daytime, it's measured at the F2. I think it's at the F2, right? Anyway, there's a diagram, and let's take a look at the ionosphere directly. Here's our lovely ionospheric map, courtesy of the Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. We'll also show the anomalygram. Give me a minute to get the and then we'll show it. So this is where we close out the space weather portion as we go all the way from the sun down to the earth. And then we'll transition and briefly talk about some Earth weather stuff as well. So we're going to show the total electron content. We're going to show the ionosphere, both in raw vibration and in anomalygram. So there's the ionosphere for you folks. And we are seeing some perturbations in the ionosphere because incoming solar plasma, both in the form of a coronal mass ejection and a coronal hole high-speed stream. So a co-interactive region just struck. This is depicting megahertz at the F layer, the F2 layer in the daytime, or the F layer at nighttime. And if you're not familiar with that map, well, this one will clarify things for you. This is the anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. That should help. And you're seeing a lot of low-frequency anomalies there. So that's very common with coronal mass ejections. That's exactly what you'd expect to see as we tie the data together to the other data. The ionosphere, experiencing some scintillation, some perturbation, and some additional anomalous vibration. That's what happens when coronal mass ejections strike and coronal hole high-speed streams strike. So there you go. There you go. Facts. We like them. And next we'll show the total electron content. This is going to show you where your GPS is least likely to be accurate. So if you can turn on Wi-Fi location services, that may help. And you're seeing quite a high electron content. This is why the GOES electron flux shows anomalous data, because space weather affects the altitude of the F layer. It makes it puff up. So it's at a lower and a higher altitude, and it also makes it wavy. This is showing us the total electron content. And it is based on ground stations shown in orange communicating with the satellites, which are at over 20,000 miles of altitude. So that is the outer portion of the outer Van Allen belts. It's depicting ions from the ground level all the way up to the outer portion of the outer Van Allen belts at about 20,000 miles of altitude. So that's what's going on. Barbarian 1111 states Musk was just announced as a trillionaire.
That's great. He is a trillionaire on paper. He is a trillionaire on paper. But the question is he a trillionaire in reality? Right? Because you may have a trillion in equity, but until you sell your stock, do you really have a trillion? You have illiquid assets. Anyway, let's show the sunrise. I think 40 frames will do it. This is the sunrise as we transition to Earth weather. Here's a sunrise over the lovely Atlantic Ocean. There's the blue globe in grayscale from the Goes East. Ah, it's so good. Very nice. And let's move on to the water vapor map. Since that's super useful to show U.S. weather, when your Doppler radar is unclear, take a look at the water vapor map. It'll clear things right up for you, folks. Let's get 100% quality. There we go. So we do have a band of moisture here being sandwiched. And you can see this dry mass of air to its north here, sort of pushing that moisture down into Texas and Louisiana. That's why it's moving due south. It's because of this cold air. So cold Canadian air and dry air out of the Pacific are serving to act as a blocking feature there, and it's going to kind of compress this. It looks like we're going to get some heavy storms there in Texas and Louisiana. If I'm incorrect, please correct me in the comments. Rich is a state of mind. That's exactly right. And is a state of mind too, right? So that is an important fact, Barbarian 1111. You know, broke is a perhaps temporary financial status, where poor is a mindset. So if you're poor, you got to break the mindset. If you're poor and you win $1 million, you're probably going to blow the $1 million and stay poor. But if you're rich and you win $1 million, you might be able to retire on it. Probably not. Probably not. It depends on your age, of course. But yeah, rich is a state of mind, and so is poor. So broke is a financial status. Poor is a mindset. A distinction. So thanks for making that distinction. I really like that. Anyway, here's the U.S. Doppler radar map. This shows vertical motion of the air column, and as you can see there, that moisture is causing some strong storms. You can see where they are. I'm not going to try to explain it. Here's our local forecast for our local viewers. Shout out to our local viewers here. High near 92 today with a chance of thunderstorms and showers after 3 p.m. Tonight a low around 62, so a little bit of cooling there. And then tomorrow a little bit cooler, high near 86. Saturday night low near 63. Showers likely in a thunderstorm after 2 p.m. on Sunday with a high near 85. So, and then starting next week, a big respite there. Much cooler temperatures starting out next week. That's for our local viewers. Shout out to our viewers from the local U.S., from the Lehigh Valley Cycling Club, and all of our friends, foes, and neutrals in the Lehigh Valley. We love each and every one of you. Here's our pressure map. Here's our temperature map. Very hot in the southwestern U.S. The sun's barely risen and it's already 94 degrees. 99 degrees at Yuma, Arizona. Check it out, folks. Nearly 100 degrees and the sun's barely risen. It's going to be kind of hot. Kind of hot. And let's look at weather warnings briefly. There you've got your weather warnings. You could pick weather.gov if you like. There are all kinds of places. Please heed your local weather warnings. Don't go out in a severe thunderstorm. It could be unhealthful. And now we're looking at lightningmaps.org because we do have some active cells here. Northeast of Dallas. Hey, Paris, Texas. There's thunder rolling in. Lightningmaps.org. Use it to possibly save your bacon. Know where the cells are located and don't go outside. They usually move around. So don't get struck by lightning. Another public service message from smashomash.com. Anyway, like I said, there's where the active cells are located. No surprise if you look at the water vapor map. It's a real son of a bit turn getting struck by lightning, so please don't do it. And let's take a look at tropical tidbits here. We're going to show a forecast model for the GFS 72 hour. Here is the pressure and precipitation forecast for the GFS 72 hour. That is where you can expect the rain to be falling. So a series of heavy storms here are going to be located in Missouri. It's going to add to the misery of the state. Look at that. Multiple heavy storms there. Southern Missouri, especially. Also bits of Nebraska. Bits of Kansas there. Also going to see some likely supercell activity, likely containing damaging wind and hail. Thanks for leaving a comment, Stephen LaFleur, 3981. Good morning. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Barb, no, I do not have an iPhone. I have heard about the new Siri update. And, let me bring that to light as well. Since we talked about market stuff before I show the Earth's jet streams and surface winds, let's talk about AI as it is. Siri is now powered by Google Gemini. So if you were concerned about certain entities being a monopoly in the marketplace, it's only getting worse. The best way to get out of a hole is to stop digging. And we haven't stopped digging yet. Yeah, Apple, Siri is now powered by Gemini. It's like Google and Apple are now instead of competitors, they're now business partners in the AI. And plus, to make matters even crazier, check this out. Google has agreed to pay XAI $890 million a month for AI compute. Nearly $1 billion. How are they going to fund $1 billion a month in AI compute? It's crazy. So yeah, by the way, Smash staff just smashed her iPhone a few days ago and went back to Android. Whether it's because of Siri, I don't think so. She was just sick of the device. And she's delighted about her new Android. But ultimately, the monopoly has only gotten worse now because having the Google AI and the Siri, Apple just gave up. Apple was just like, hey, let's just let Google control our AI. So now there's a weird partnership between the largest computer provider in the world, which would be Android devices. There are more Android devices than anything else in the world. So yeah, there are some antitrust issues, meaning there are some distrust issues, and you should definitely distrust certain corporations because they do not have your best interests at heart. So yeah, I don't know about the new Siri update, but yeah, it has to do with Siri being powered by Google. And so now having this partnership between Google and Apple puts a real stranglehold, a real monopoly on smartphones and the AI features that everybody wants. And when I say wants, I mean doesn't want. So we'll close out the video with the wind patterns of the planet. Yeah, some global weather patterns. Since we showed you the US, we'll zoom back out a little bit here and show you the jet stream to the central world. The part of the world where everybody's screwed. Here are the surface winds of this part of the world where everybody's screwed. Yeah, people are screwed on this part of the planet. Now let's check out this part of the planet. I think people are less screwed in this area, but they're probably screwed too, since the whole world economy has been once again sabotaged. Intentionally ruined. Because there's no better way to demonstrate an uptick in the economy than to just sabotage it on purpose, right? What better way to prove how economically literate you are than to just intentionally crash the economy? Because then if it makes any kind of a comeback, you can cite some cherry-picked data and say, oh, look, folks, I created the biggest uptick in this period of time than has ever been done before after I've intentionally engineered the economic destruction of the entire planet. Look, I brought it back from the brink of total destruction. Aren't I your hero? It's like if somebody breaks your leg and then says, "You're welcome for setting your bone." Like, what a crock of shh. A crock of shh. What a fucking crock of shh. Just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Anyway, here are the jet streams of this portion of the world where everybody's screwed. Yeah, you're probably screwed. Similarly screwed to the US, but for different reasons. So, yeah, there you go. And here are the jet streams of the Western world where everybody's screwed. Yeah, you're welcome for fixing the economy that I destroyed. You're welcome for fixing that we intentionally destroyed. You're welcome for us being such a benefit to humanity. Oh, you're so welcome. You're doing a fine job. You're doing a fine job, corporatocratic plutocracy. Just a fine job. Thanks for creating multiple engineered destructions of the economy over only a period of 6 years. Well done. It's three intentional destructions of the economy over a period of only 6 years. Just brilliant. So those are the jet streams, and of course you can see what's affecting the weather in the US here. You can see the sort of a doubled up jet stream there converging on the central US and then diverging and blowing backwards over the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to create some weird weather in the Gulf states, as you may expect. Here are the surface winds of this side of the planet where you're screwed. And let's take a look at Saharan dust. I just want to see if we have any. I don't know if there's going to be any or not, but there we go. Saharan dust is pretty light right now. Saharan dust, it's been known to fertilize the Caribbean and the Leeward Islands. And we'll close out with some more imagery of the closest star. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in, folks. Amazing people aren't angry enough. People need to be extremely angry. Pitchforks and torches need to be regular equipment for regular people. Because until the fear of God is put into some people, they're not going to respond. They're going to think that they can just live in their little sheltered world. People think just certain plutocrats and corporatists, they think that they can just hide away in some insulative world. Problem is, folks, if you are in a bunker, one day your pilot might decide to eat you. What are you going to do then? Like, you're not an island. What are you going to do? Just live by yourself? Like, how many resources do you got to have to just be completely on your own, locked in a bunker? It's not a thing. Like, these corporatists, these corporatist plutocrats that are in control of all the governments in the world, Zuck's pilot is going to eat Zuck and all of his MREs and steal his wife and barbecue his children. Like these models do not work. You can't exist without like a societal environment. Humans aren't built for that. You can't just live in a bunker yourself for 20 years. You will go absolutely berserk. You will be useless. So, I mean, no man is an island unto himself. So, plutocrats should probably understand that. You can't just make enemies of the entire planet and expect to have no repercussions. So, anyway, there will be accountability coming. Our finest days continue to lie ahead, while doomsday prophets just continue to lie for profits. I've been your host, Dan, aka Smash-O-Mash, signing off after a 2.5-hour long stream. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks again, Barbarian1111, for providing the largest super chat ever and essentially floating this month on the channel. It's spectacular. And thanks to everybody who's tuned in. Please press the share button. If you're new, press subscribe. Otherwise, you won't get content like this. Yeah, a lot of things. I only talk about some of the things on most of these videos because Google. Anyway, see you next time. And until next time, may that solar wind be at your back and that fraud absent from your subscription feed. How about have a nice unsubscribe fest today, folks? Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.